mental stage
Okay.
as a person with all the
So.
things which go with it. What's your thoughts on the topic? Oh man,
Um,
that's not my thoughts on it. That's for certain. Hope you're doing well, Taya. By the way, are you over in? Yeah, you're over in YouTube right now, I guess. Yeah, looks like it. Um, yeah, definitely not my position on it. Hope you're doing well though, Taya. I don't usually talk abortion stuff on my channel. Just drags a whole bunch of really wild extremists into my chat. I'm glad you're good.
um,
Let's see. Catch up on some of this stuff.
so I have Zonia on
Yes,
right
I have to
now.
go, but I will still be here in the window, and spirit. All right. Take care, Elder Drazi. Thanks for stopping by and thank you for the subs. I really appreciate it. Let's see. So let me catch up. Probably people had some stuff to say.
Okay, there we go. Gotta go to here. And then, she got it. There we go. Okay, cool. Turn on my camera. What happened? Everything broke. Okay, there we go. Hello.
Hi, can you hear me?
I can hear you. One second. I figured out how to do the OBS virtual camera too. Smokes. Let's see. Yep, should do it. Makes Discord close, I guess. Okay. Can you see me now?
Can you hear me though?
Yes. Can you hear me? We good? Oh, hang on. Let's see. Can you hear me?
Yeah, it's a little bit low, but it could be
Okay. Give me one
my
second.
headphones.
It should. Okay, yep. Cool. It's working. There we go. Cool. Okay, you're like the first person that's ever gotten me with my OBS virtual camera working correctly.
Yeah, learn that too. It seems a little confusing. I don't know how to get the little, like the cool scrolly thing you got at the top.
Oh, the chat? Yeah, that was kind of a pain in the ass too. That's an overlay. Are you using OBS right now?
No.
Oh, okay. Well, when you start using OBS, wait, you have used OBS, right?
Yes, but only as production for producing for other. It was a podcast, so I've never streamed from it. Like I've never had my own
Gotcha.
one.
Well, that's kind of interesting. Are you like an editor? Is that what you do?
I went to college for graphic design, and it just kind of went on from there. Yeah, I enjoy producing, design, writing, stuff like that. Kind of like
Okay.
a behind the scenes person more than anything.
More the marketing side?
Yes, I love marketing. I love
Me
marketing and I
too.
love writing. So I have kind of meshed that into my own little copywriting adventure.
Hell yeah. I love
I just
writing
bought
and
my own
marketing.
domain.
Oh, what is it?
Yeah. NatashaStudio.com.
Oh, sick. Is it just the domain, or do you have anything on it yet?
No, it's not published. Yeah, it'll be
Oh,
my
gotcha.
portfolio website, so
Okay. Sorry, give me
I'm
1
excited
minute.
about that.
You can still talk for a minute. I gotta find my vape because I'm useless without. I'll be right back. I'm sorry. I can still hear you though. Sure. Okay, I'm sorry about that. I had to leave in between streams. My pharmacy didn't give me my most important medicine before I left before Will's stream, and to get it all taken care of, and I left my vape in the car. Without my nasal
kind of
spray,
vape
I'm
do you have?
useless. It's a Breeze. I found out that this is just like a strictly Michigan thing.
I've got views.
Yeah, so our fuses, those are refillable, right?
I think they can be, but mine's not.
Yeah, these
Did
are
you see
like,
that the FDA just came out with a ban on Juuls?
yeah, because they didn't put in their paperwork in time. And I know a guy who owns a vape store, and he was really really big on making sure that like he had everything in like super super way in advance. And I'd have to imagine if they're just trying to like can companies, like Juul is the biggest one, that they probably fucked up then, because a lot of other companies would be going down at the same time. I actually quit smoking and vaping for a really really long time, and my roommate handed me one of these. I was like, yeah, I'll try it, and I was like, oh shit, that's great. I guess I'll get one, and then just, ever since.
Yeah.
They're they should ban these so I don't buy them anymore.
Is
They're
it
too good.
refillable?
No, they're not, and they're not super cheap either. My coworker took some down to Florida, and they sold them for like $30 a piece, like all day. They'd like help pay for his
Oh.
vacation. It was ridiculous. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know why they're not expanding out, because they should. They're uh, like, I don't know. There's got to be something special about them, because I vape like everything. Anyways, I'm super glad that you agreed to come on here. I've seen you on Will's channel, and not a lot of people that talk about the things that you guys are talking about seem to have a clue what they're talking about. So usually if I try to talk to, like, I had a boss, she's like, oh, I really like conspiracy theories. Let me tell you a bunch of nonsense. I'm like, oh, okay. And she's kind of like nod when I say stuff, and then I don't know, she's just kind of wacky. And that seems to be my general experience with people that I run into. Like, obviously there's people out there that have like a good ideas, because I'll read their stuff or I see their videos. I'm like, oh yes, this checks out with everything else they've seen. But very rarely do I actually like speak to somebody who has like a cohesive like idea about the things that they think are going on.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, for me it all started, I mean, I was a big Alex Jones fangirl back in mm, maybe around like 2007, 2008.
Oh, even more
Then I
earlier than
lost
me.
uh and then like I mean, you know, I know that I've mentioned to you I just kind of stay off the political spectrum. I've got like a huge non-divisive basis. So, I just you know, I don't really make comments towards any of that. So, and he definitely went very far right.
Yeah, it was weird. What was
Yeah.
your breaking point with Alex Jones?
No, there really wasn't a breaking. There's not really, it still isn't really a breaking point. I think that
Okay.
he does still present pretty good ideas and has a really huge general knowledge of the New World Order type stuff. Uh, but it wasn't really a breaking point. It was just more of a kind of, life happened. I kind of aired off the side of watching his stuff, and then um, I'm not saying that I'm not saying that I don't totally like him or whatever. I think that he's still very knowledgeable on and very. I think that generally uh, he does a good job at, I guess, waking people up to some things, but as far as a
Sure.
political basis, I can't, you know.
I think one of the really frustrating things for me when it comes to Alex Jones is like the perception. Like it seems like people either think that like it's all a character, it's all a show, and none of it's like really him. And like he's pretty clear that it's like a mixture of both. He's like playing an exaggerated version of himself. Because good God, you would have to if you're doing that for
Yeah,
that long. I had a
yeah.
very deliberate breaking point. Oh, go ahead.
There's just a lot of satire and sarcasm that comes along with it. It's kind of hard to weed through, you know.
Yeah, you have to be accustomed to it. I think there's a lot of streamers that kind of have that too, where it's really hard to tell when they're joking and when they're not joking until you're kind of used to how they do things. So if you're popping on like for the first time and you hear something that seems really outrageous, like maybe just enter with a little bit of charity is what I would normally say. But I don't. He basically lost all of my respect in like one swoop. And he went on. Did you see his interview with Piers Morgan, or when Piers Morgan had him on?
Yeah, he was talking about SSRIs, I guess, and then I think there's a couple other things that he had mentioned also in there. Yeah. I think he plays that loud, obnoxious character sometimes on purpose. I don't know. 'Cause, I mean, you would think that you'd have a little bit more self-awareness.
Well, I think that when you do it for so long, that like once you're on stage, it doesn't matter where the stage is. That's just how you're just gonna play it. The stage is the trigger. You ever see the old Jet Li movie Unleashed?
Uh,
Oh, okay. There was a guy they had when they put they had a collar on him, and when they take the collar off him, he would become like an insane like brainwashed killer. When they put it back on, he was fine. So that's how I think of Alex Jones. Like once he's like on the stage, that's him taking off the collar, and he just becomes the super exaggerated version of himself. Did you ever notice they
yeah.
had like audio cues when he was getting like a little too rowdy, like on his own show?
Uh-uh.
Yeah, I remember one time he was like it was like one too many desk pounds to where I just wasn't just listening and I looked over and his face was like really really red and like he was kind of like weaving a bit and there was a sound bite that like played. It was like danger Will Robinson, and he kind of like looked over real quick and well anyway, and just had sort of
Yeah.
moved along and he chilled out. Yeah, so they have like an on-set handler from the like, "Hey, Alex, you're freaking out a bit too much. You're gonna be freaking people out. You gotta you
Yeah.
gotta fucking chill, bud." And
Yeah.
like I don't say it's smart. It is. It's hard when you. I think it'd be really hard to play that kind of character. But like, it wasn't the content that he was talking about with Piers Morgan. He just sort of broke down, like, and started like making fun of his accent and stuff, and like not really engaging with anything anymore. And I thought when I was like, oh, Alex Jones is going to be on CNN, he's going to say a bunch of stuff that I've told other people, and like me and the people that I know that listen to him are going to feel really vindicated when like everybody hears the kinds of things. Like he could have said like a bunch of things that he said that were going to happen that did inevitably happen. He could have said that, and that could have been like the clippable thing instead of they're turning the frogs gay. And instead, he just sort of made himself and everybody that like told people to watch him look like an asshole. And I think that I was like kind of at a crossroads, like either Alex Jones is entirely full of shit, with how he's presenting himself to us all the time, or he wants us to look crazy. He wants to. He's like the lighthouse to draw everybody in, who's interested in figuring out like whenever something seems a little suspicious, especially with the government. So we'll all come to him, and then he'll tell us things in the craziest way possible. So the only way we have to communicate it would be to like repeat it back to other people the same way it was told to us, and it makes us sound nuts. So it's kind of like the truthers out there are gonna look for the truth no matter what, but at least it stops with them.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, and that's kind of what I mean, when I say that he's just it's almost kind of like he acts outrageous on purpose a little bit
Oh,
sometimes.
gotcha. Because there's been a lot of times where it's like it'd be pretty hard to get that information without anybody knowing that you got it too. So I don't know. I think I have complex feelings about Alex Jones. I
Yeah.
I guess overall I just wish he would have done better later on in his career. So I used to listen to him every single day when we worked. My buddy who just texted me like right before I got on here. Him and I used to do roofing and like things like that, like roofing and painting and stuff, and we'd have Alex Jones on our big radio outside when we worked.
Yeah.
And now I don't
Have
even
you
know if
listened
he's
to him
still
lately?
going. No, is he still going?
Yeah.
No, I was kind of horrified to see him like shilling for Trump,
Uh-huh.
and
Yeah,
then
that's what I mean. And
afterwards,
it's like super political now. It's super, he'll definitely blatantly call out the different parties and specifically, you know. So, I don't know.
that's really weird
Uh
because it was always the global elite, or because the
yeah,
United
that's what
States
I'm
government
saying.
doesn't want you
Like,
to. This, yeah.
yeah. I mean, it's like he kind of split it apart from the New World Order. He still does talk about the New World Order. Um, definitely. But
But are the
it's too
Democrats the ones
split for me
propagating it
now.
now?
No, it's the World Economic Forum.
Okay.
Still, I mean, he still advocates for, the basis of it, of the New World Order, but uh as far as what's happening at home, there's still definitely a split, which um there is a split.
Sure.
I don't
Yeah,
think that
it's
he
pretty
should be so
divided,
I don't
but
think he should be so yeah, blatant. I don't think he should be blatantly picking sides is kind of what I'm kind of my thoughts on it.
yeah, it used to be. He used to say all the time, like I could probably almost say it verbatim, like, folks, it's not the Democrats, it's not the Republicans, it's all of them. They're all in on it. They're all in on the game, and you're the target. Like that would be the kind of thing that he would say all the time. He would always emphasize that it's not like everything that you're seeing is just a game, that they're all friends, that they're all like everything that's bad that's happening is like because they're doing it together. And so it's very, very weird to hear that shift.
Yes, I agree.
And I think that damages integrity a lot.
Hmm.
And unless he has like a 5 hour video explaining how this shift happened, and it just happened to be like now all the good there's a bunch of good people there and they're on one side.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and he does advocate for, um, you know,
That's a bummer.
he never advocates for violence or anything like that, but it's pretty clear what side he's on, you know?
Hmm.
Oh, um, yeah. I think there's definitely a kind of a push a little bit for some sort of deal, civil
It's like a civil war kind of
trial
thing.
type. I think that, and then that's kind of um the basis of what he talks about a little bit, but
He's been talking about that for like forever.
yeah, yeah,
Well, he used to talk about that they were trying to like they were trying to like push the United States into a civil war before. Yeah. I don't know the reframing, I always get really sad. Like when I ever hear anything about Alex Jones, it sort of just makes me sad. Because I spent a good long part of my mid-20s defending him like crazy. And I still stand by all the stuff that I said then, but not. It's just not the same. Does it bum you out too?
The whole state of the entire world bums me out at the moment. There's so much it, division. Like I just, yeah, that's why I stay really neutral. I really, yeah, it it, it, it just really bums me out. Everything bums me out right now.
Can I
Yeah.
ask you a question about that? About the division thing? Where do you think that like if is there like what thing would you think that you would say that you skew the hardest on? And do you have like a specific reason for that?
Um, just basically the fact that I can kind of relate to both sides.
Mhm.
But there's definitely points to different subjects that there's like strong lines that I won't cross on each side. And so like it's like I'm not too well versed in like the political spectrum. I'm not I like if I was to have to write a list of everything that Republicans like, and then and then what everything Democrats like, I wouldn't even be able to do that. I wouldn't even be
Sure.
able to even like back, you know, I mean, if you read in history, that's always talking about Democrats and Republicans too. I just
Yeah, but
there's
they
just like
they
a
swap
it's
they swap too.
yeah. Yeah, it's just super confusing to me. And the
That's
fact that it's
unfair.
confusing and that I'm not knowledgeable about it just makes me um you know,
Are you saying that
and
because you
then
don't understand, you're not qualified to speak on it?
a little bit, yes, but also the fact that there's things that I can relate to on both sides. There's ideas that I like on each side that don't intermesh together, and I don't understand why. And so,
Sure.
you know,
Uh, that makes a lot of sense to me. I think that well, for a long time, I was a libertarian. If you watch Alex Jones a lot, you know what a libertarian is. But I talked to enough libertarians to where I realized this is a pointless stance to take.
yeah,
They're insane. You can't have a real conversation with a libertarian, no matter how hard you try. Um,
yeah, and that's what I was just about to say. I mean, and then some people will, you know, just assume that I'm, but that's completely not the case either. I really don't belong to a political party. I wish there was just more of a, a middleman spectrum type deal.
yeah, I mean, there's definitely some centrists out there, but almost every time when somebody says a centrist, they mean that I'm a conservative. Um, that's what it usually amounts to in like the Twitch politics spaces, anyways, or they're trolling. I don't know. There's like a woman on Twitch right now who's been like she talked to this guy Hunter Avalon, and she's like the most centrist person I've ever seen in my life, and I also think that she's batshit insane. Like they were talking about this. There's like a device that's used to prevent rape that they designed for Africa that essentially like makes the man have to go to the ER if he attempts it. And her whole thing was like, that's a terrible thing. Like you have no empathy for the rapist, and like that's too centrist for me. Like you're a crazy person. She was I kept skipping around Twitch channels because I didn't want to keep being super toxic in chat every time I seen her saying really wild things, and everybody was watching her, so I just had to close Twitch.
Yeah, yeah,
She's like the definition
yeah,
of true neutral, and I think it gets pretty crazy if you're overwhelmingly like not on a side of any given issue. Though I don't think that's what you're saying. You're saying in some areas I'm here, in some areas I'm there. You just go by
yeah.
what makes sense. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I don't follow a certain type of, it's really not even in my vocabulary to even follow. like what people. I'm not a person that follows the crowd. I'm a
Yeah.
I'm a super independent thinker. I like to kind of make up my own decisions and stuff like that. So, yeah. And I
So
don't. There's not many people like me, so it gets lonely. Honestly, in
uh,
such a divided country.
yeah, and yet it's a really interesting term because we talking about conspiracies. A lot of people who don't do their own research say I do my own research a lot. Does that trigger you at all when you hear that from people who clearly haven't spent more than 5 seconds reading the headline of an article that doesn't say what the headline even like describes?
Yeah. Um. No, it just makes me empathetic to them. I mean, it doesn't trigger me in like a way that it makes me angry or anything. I don't. It's hard to make me angry, really. But, yeah.
I get
And that's kind of the
frustrated.
basis of my website is to try to get the headline out of just the headline and get the article content, straightforward to people. But no, I still have a lot to do on it, and I just don't like it when I just don't like it when people don't get along. I don't know. I just,
I think I can empathize with that. I have a buddy, whoever we're in like a large Discord and people start arguing, uh, he'll just say like, can't everybody just get along? And it's almost guaranteed the next thing that's going to be said, and that is shut the fuck up, Scott.
yeah. Um, yeah, it gets to a point where people it seems like they just argue just to, it's like not even normal conversations anymore. It's just arguing, really, about
Yeah,
everything.
I don't know if I said this to you or not, but I know this wasn't one of the things that I said I wanted to talk about, but for the longest time, I think I've just sort of exhausted saying it so much that it sort of fell out of my head for a while. But for years and years, I always said I think that the biggest conspiracy is the idea that everyone's out for themselves and that anybody will screw over anybody they can to get ahead. I think that's a lot more rare than people think, because almost everybody that I've ever met uh, tries to be really empathetic, would do pretty much anything to help a stranger. That's not my lived experience at all, but I think that we remember the people that were shitty to us a lot more than the people that were kind to us because, like, kindness doesn't leave scars. So I think that that narrative's been pushed in, like, all of our media, I, all of it, like books, newspapers, everything. We really focus on people being bad to other people. And I think that really helps drive the division between people. And now when I'm seeing, like, when I put it into the context of how the country looks today, I think that that narrative probably has a lot to do with it.
Yeah. Yeah, I completely agree with that. Yeah, there's a lot of people that just want to be heard, and a lot of people that don't want to listen. And yeah, I completely agree with that. I don't think that there's as much um I think that I honestly think that deep down every single person has the capacity to love and think fairly and treat other people with respect. It's just that it's pushed not to. Or that the arguments are pushed, or that the topics, it's the media putting stuff out there that divides us on purpose. But I mean, yeah, I've even the even the raunchiest of souls has the capacity to really love. And you know I've met a lot of people, and I've been able to actually speak to a lot of people that are um just kind of lost in themselves. And you can just kind of, if you just spend some time with somebody and talk to them with compassion, you'll be really surprised at what comes out. It's actually amazing.
I think I agree with that. Yeah, I think that I'm always surprised at the amount of times that I see people not being trusting for pretty much no reason. and it's a pretty big bummer. I think that's like the real win. Like if the plan has ever been to divide and conquer, that's the best way to do it. Like I
Yes.
think we look out for a lot of things like racial tension or like political tension, and those things are used in that way. But I think it's just an overall umbrella narrative of just like everybody's out to get you,
Yes.
and so therefore you should be out to get everyone else. And I think a lot of
Yes.
people act this way because they're scared.
Yes. Exactly.
And I think that's a really good tool to use if you want to do things that people normally wouldn't want you to do.
Yep.
So, what actually, I know we talked about it. Which things did you want to go over today? You're my guest,
Um,
and I I think I told Will too, like I respect the hell out of your knowledge and all this stuff. If you can pick the one. Uh or
well,
two or
the ones
whatever.
that I gathered sources on was mostly, kind of going into 9/11. I think that's a
Hell
pretty
yeah,
big
it's my
one. It's a pretty touchy
specialty.
one
Yeah.
for some people, but the evidence is pretty overwhelming. So
It's nuts. I've all
yeah,
like the thing that I usually tell people like when I know that I'm not really gonna be able to get into the weeds with them, like when you have a stack of evidence that says the official story can't be true. It can't be. And the evidence to the like to support the official story is literally non-existent. There's a big problem. Like you can't just accept like
yeah,
I would never see myself in a situation where I would buy into something like that ever when the evidence points one way. And it seems like a lot of people that preach the idea that science should guide your decision making are totally abdicating their position when they look at something like 9/11. It's not even, and I I'm using this term loosely and I almost never use it. It it almost feels like common sense would tell you based on how many things line up super conveniently with 9/11 that something has to be going on. Like there's I'm all for one for saying like just because something's like coincidental and it lines up doesn't mean, but there's only so many coincidences that I can deal with in a row that make things play out in a very like perfect way to where I can just be like, no, it's sometimes, every once in a while, NORAD runs a training exercise the exact same time that planes are being hijacked. And it just sometimes so happens that when a building is hit by a plane or missile, who knows? That it just happens to contain the data where there's $1 trillion of financial information that's missing that they have to audit. Sometimes these things happen at the exact same time.
yeah.
Sometimes when planes explode, it just so happens to be the case that a passport ends up making it out alive, even though we can't find any traces of humans left because the explosion was such. This is too many things.
Um,
when
yeah.
you get overwhelmed, it's like, well, come on. Like if you were married or you were dating somebody and you were like, well, she's actually just my friend. Like, okay, sure, I understand. That's why you guys went and ate at that restaurant. Oh, it was also a hotel, and you guys stayed the night there. Okay, well, I'm sure you didn't get separate. Oh, I'm sure it's fine. Coincidences happen, and that's just two people. The amount of things that have to line up are pretty small, and that's bullshit for like 99% of people. But when you have so many complex things happening at the same time that it just happens to be super duper coincidental all the way down along the line.
Mama. Mama. Hello, Mama.
Hold on one second.
Yeah, you're good. I get it. I also have child. Anybody notice that I've been absolutely fucking killing it in this poker game? Oh,
We're good.
Okay. Um, so yeah, I just wanted to kind of explain why I have the position that I have before we get into any of the specifics. It's just there's too much stuff. At a certain point, I can't consider myself rational if I just accept an overwhelming number of coincidences that line up to such a perfectly. It's too convenient for too many people. It's just too much for me. And I assume you feel similarly. Maybe not. I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, not right away. I
Mhm.
didn't. But yeah, the more that you dig into it, it's definitely I'm trying to think of the point where I actually started questioning. I think when I started watching videos on Building 7, the demolition of that was kind of like a little outstanding. And then back then was when YouTube was just coming out. And so you
Mhm.
could just kind of binge watch that stuff and it was addicting. And
Yeah.
then like now it's just like common not I mean, I'm sure that there's some people that probably disagree, but it's pretty widely known that a lot of things are fishy with it now.
Yeah, like the jet fuel melts steel beams was a meme for like years. Or jet fuel doesn't melt steel beams. Hey, Will's in the chat. Um, so the do you want to talk about the relationship between jet fuel and steel and why that mattered?
Uh, yeah. I mean, yeah, I don't really. I mean, if I'm sure that you probably know a little bit more specific on the topic.
Oh yeah, I could write an
I
album
do have
about
a
it.
video that's I have a video source that
You
I was
do?
gonna watch, but I didn't get time to. I
Oh,
do, yeah, on my thing, but it's
gotcha.
46 minutes long, so it's never gonna work.
So I can break this down pretty easy. So the melting point of steel is several hundred degrees higher than what jet fuel can possibly burn at. Every accelerant has a maximum heat output because like the fire is just a chemical reaction and we know that it has a cap to it. Just like boiling water isn't going to be over 100 degrees ever or 120 degrees. That's what boiling is, right? 220 Fahrenheit.
212.
212. There we go. See, I know science. It's never going to exceed that.
Yeah.
It'll just evaporate faster. So jet fuel burns at hundreds of degrees lower than jet fuel, or they're lower than steel melts. And that's not so much a problem, except that there is pools of molten steel at the site. And there's people that have said that, well, when you get multiple parts of a building collapsing down, that kind of pressure can do it. Um, maybe, maybe. I don't think that there's no evidence to show to that degree. But the other issue too is that something has to eviscerate the steel columns, though. The columns are in the middle. Those floors aren't falling down onto the steel column; they're falling around it. The steel column was completely gone. Like
Yeah.
even assuming that like, thermite was used or anything, it's still impressively fast at how well it went down. And thermite can burn easily through steel like a knife through butter, but it fell at essentially free fall speed. There was no tilting, and so if the fires from the planes are what did it, the steel would have to bend. No steel was bent. Like we're just operating purely on physics. The impact of the plane can't cause enough force. I don't care what they were carrying to liquefy that steel column. Even if it could, that section, like you would still have huge chunks of center column. It was designed specifically with the idea in mind that a plane could hit it and still be standing. And I don't think that you could find any architect that would look at the plans of the World Trade Center and who would say that this would not be able to withstand a blow from multiple airplanes and still be standing. The center column of that thing was massive. And I think maybe the problem is that a lot of people don't understand what a center column is and how that works. Are you familiar with like the structure of the building?
No, not really. No, not at
Okay.
all, really.
I think I can break it down pretty fast because like the fact that it goes away in super fast is pretty paramount to Like if you're suspicious about anything at all, it is one of the most easily justified things to say like something's wrong here. Something's very, very wrong here. So it's steel straight up, like large bars of steel go straight up into the air, and all of the floors are supported across it. So they're so strong that they can hold all the floors of the World Trade Center on them. All the floors are built around it. So you have like a big square rectangle going straight up into the sky, and then they build over on top of them. They're like the pillars that hold up the entire building. So that's a ton of weight, and you have to be able to withstand a lot of different shifts. It has to be able to withstand like different people moving in different spots. It has to be able to hold everything that's on those floors. Everything on a building like the World Trade Center is dependent on that center column. They are massive and they are super heavy duty. Even if somehow magically you could get jet fuel to get hot enough to manipulate it, bend it, warp it, or anything like that, we'd still see enormous parts of this building standing, and it fell straight down. There's some weird things with the dust that looks like thermite burning off of it. There has been somebody who, a physicist actually examined some of the rubble, or some of the dust from the rubble, and found thermate. It's a patented U.S. brand of thermite. And I think it's what makes it thermate is it has a higher level of nickel in it. I could be wrong on that. According to some of the people that have pushed back on me against that, well, pushed back on that guy's claims when I've brought it up, they said that there's like some missing, what do they call it? Like documentation of custody when it was like when that sample was moving over to him. But that guy still put his career on the line. He didn't have to do that. And I can't imagine why somebody, so like the amount of risk that an individual who's transporting would have to take, or this guy would have to take to say that there's not just thermite but thermate in it, is tremendous. If you're not the physicist who did it, like it's like treasonous to mess with this site, right? It's not just, you're not just violating a crime scene. This is like an act of war, and you're disrupting an investigation on it. The same for the physicist, but he also has like a really legitimate like PhD job on the line. I can't imagine why that would happen to just like goof people, you know? And if that is the case, and that is happening, something still got rid of that center column, and somebody did it on purpose, risking a lot to change the evidence. So there's something crazy, unreal happening in this, no matter which way you look at it. And then, like you said, Building 7. Are you really familiar with Building 7? I can let you take the reins on that. I think that shattered anything I could have, any explanation I could have had.
I mean, I'm not completely, you know, an expert on Building 7, but definitely I think that's the point where I was like, okay, what's going on here? Then also there's a BBC report of the Building 7 collapse before it even collapsed. Too. Yeah. And then also witness accounts of multiple explosions.
Yeah.
At the bottom of it too.
Some people say they heard explosions at the bottom of the Twin Towers as well.
Yeah.
The Building 7 exhibited a picturesque version of a controlled demolition. It had the crimp in the middle, the ends went up a little bit, and it fell straight down. And it's remarkable how all three buildings fell directly into their own footprint. Like, there's a reason why the ground zero is this like really neat, like clean spot, and we don't have like a ton of other buildings completely wrecked by rubble and things flying around like you would expect if something flew into these and exploded them to bits. They all fell straight down. You can't really get there's a reason why they do a controlled demolition the way that they do. It's because it limits the impact to the surrounding area. And it had the same result as a controlled impact. Building 7 looked identical to a controlled demolition. And also no planes hit it, and it just happened to go down on the same day. That's one of those where I would need remarkable evidence to tell me why it's not insanely suspicious that this happened at the same time. And then
Yeah.
we can also say like, okay, I grant you all that. The Pentagon too, and it just happened to be where they keep $1 trillion of financial data
Yeah.
on the same day. Why are the terrorists helping out our government so much by blowing up that exact spot? Um,
Uh, I put a link to a YouTube video in the chat. I don't know if you can do it or not. It's 3 minutes long of the Building 7 collapse. But yeah, the Pentagon, that's also another one. And then like I guess the cameras weren't working. Oh,
you put it where in what chat?
I don't know. I guess it's the Discord chat.
Okay, our Discord chat.
I have my windows funny.
Let me see. Nope. I'm looking for it. Well, maybe you put it in my Discord. Let me see.
Stream only. It's got Will's link tree above it.
Oh, okay, let me see. Oh, that's right. I forgot that video calls have text now. I see. There we go. Oh, okay. Yeah, Will put his thing in there too. I wouldn't have probably found his if you didn't say that.
Where should I put it? Where should I put stuff?
Oh, no, that's fine. You can send it directly to me. You can put it there. It's just a new feature for Discord, and I'm not really that used to it. Let's see here.
New York have been hit by airplanes. In Washington, there is a large fire at the Pentagon. The Pentagon has been evacuated. And there, as you can see, perhaps the second tower, the front tower, the top portion of which is collapsing.
Because everybody, once you have seen Building 7, there is no way back.
There we go.
You can cheat on yourself, and you can try to suppress it,
There are no words.
but but you cannot. You have seen it, and then there is no way back. It's not very healthy, to lie to yourself and say, no, I didn't see that. Yeah. But many people do, because it's simply too painful.
Now, more on the latest building collapse in New York. You might have heard a few moments ago I was talking about the Salomon Brothers building collapsing. And indeed it has. It seems that this was not a result of a new attack.
But really,
It was because
though,
the building had been
watching
weakened.
old videos of it does feel. I can still remember the way I felt that day. Super heavy,
Yeah, do you mind if I ask how old you were when that happened? Or like what grade?
I was in 6th grade math class.
Okay. I know I was in middle school. That means you're not that far off from my age. I was in middle school, but I stayed home that day. And I heard on the radio, there was usually like some kind of like talk radio or like a rock station's like talk radio thing on if I didn't go to school. And I think that's what I heard. And then like they were just getting really hyper. And I was going like, hey, I think something's going on right now. And they turned on the TV and they just sort of showed the building smoking. And then I seen the other plane coming in and I was like, it's like trying to get people to come and watch in the living room. It was really weird. I didn't really fully understand what was happening.
Yeah.
This is very confusing. I was like, is this real? I don't know.
I think it really depends on what age you were.
It's like
'Cause
somewhere
I
between
was in
6th and
math
8th
class,
grade.
and mine was definitely 6th grade because my teacher was really upset, and we had those little TVs on wheels, and she wheeled it in. She was like she was acting super depressed, and we were all kind of confused about what was going on. But yeah, but if you talk to somebody who was older, then it's definitely a different perspective from them. So
Yeah, a lot of people, it's so weird. A lot of people that I know say they found out about it in school, and I think that would have been so much more confusing.
yeah,
Oh, I guess Melissa turned off. The video's not playing at the moment. I paused it. Oh. Will, are you saying that the video was too quiet when it was playing? Oh yeah, maybe.
I didn't hear any audio from it.
Well, that's the audio if it's coming through my stream. I can show you my screen too. Let me do that. Wait, no, I'm sharing. I was about to share with you my Discord screen. That wouldn't have been very helpful. And then I wanna... Okay. Can you see it?
During this morning's attacks. We'll probably find out more now about that from our correspondent, Jane Stanley. Jane, what more can you tell us about the Salomon Brothers building and its collapse?
Well, only really what you already know. Details are very, very sketchy. As you can see behind me, the Trade Center appears to be still burning. We see these huge clouds of smoke and ash, and we know that behind that there's an empty piece of what was a very familiar New York skyline, a symbol of the financial prosperity of this city, but completely disappeared now, and New York is still unable to take on board what has happened to them today.
Presumably there were very few people in the Salomon building when it collapsed. I mean, there were, I suppose, fears of possible further collapses around the area.
That's what you would hope, because they don't really know where to turn. That's the very sad thing. I think there's going to be a lot of very, very traumatized people that has hit them very, very hard.
Jane, I think many of us, when we heard the news, perhaps on the radio earlier today, were completely flabbergasted by it and just couldn't comprehend it. I mean, it almost sounded too far-fetched. I was wondering what it's felt like for you being in Manhattan. Well, unfortunately, I think we've lost the line with Jane Stanley in Manhattan.
Now, here we're going to show you a videotape of the collapse itself.
Describe that.
Now we go to videotape, the collapse of this building. Amazing, incredible picture word.
Too far-fetched.
For the third time.
So just to be clear, the Salomon Brothers building is the name of World Trade Center Building 7. They don't ever call it that, and that's the whole time we referred to it as, so I just wanted to clear that up.
Today, it's reminiscent of those pictures we've all seen too much on television before, when a building was deliberately destroyed by well-placed dynamite to knock it down.
See what you see and not what you're supposed to see.
Yeah, I think that 9/11 was the thing that really, like, woke me up to maybe not just believing anything I was told anymore, because it was painfully obvious. Like, the World Trade Center Building 7, I know a lot of people that still don't know about it, which is crazy to me. The coverage on it was super brief, and then they moved right along, and then we rolled into war. So there wasn't a lot of time. It was like all about the two buildings, and then like immediately into war.
Yeah. Yeah. You had mentioned when we talked yesterday or whatever day, the Boeing theory.
Yeah. Well, I mentioned the report. The report that explains how, in terms of like physics, that it was possible for the towers to fall in the way that they did from a plane hitting them. It's a huge report, and it was written by Boeing, the company whose planes hit the towers, which is a very, very weird place to turn to when you're looking for a study like this. You would imagine when you're dealing with something that is like quite literally the highest level of national security, you would want nobody who had any kind of remote involvement in this, even if it was purely by happenstance that just happened to be their planes, they would not be the ones to do this. They were the ones that did it. And even within the report, it lists a possible scenario for this. They're not even saying that this is what happened because they couldn't say this is what happened. And there's so many fantastical scenarios. When buildings are structured the way that it was structured, you wouldn't get a pancake. So if you got the pancake effect, what people talk about a lot, you're blowing through similar steel beams that they're very similar to the center column, and those would come crashing down too. Like they just evaporate on the way down.
Yeah.
The Boeing report on it tried to explain how that could happen because of the amount of weight and force caused by them hitting. The only problem with that is that they're smashing into each other on the way down. You're creating more and more mass to get rid of. So like the mass that you're trying to destroy on the way down is becoming equally proportionate to the like you basically need as much. They're essentially saying that like per piece of steel, like this is enough mass to evaporate this piece of steel falling from this height, and that's just not the case.
Yeah.
So like more weight's being added, but that's more mass to get rid of. It doesn't line up, and it's hard to argue with somebody about that report because there's a lot of math and there's a lot of physics terms that you need to really have a good understanding of in order to try to get somebody to understand that it's nonsense. And not even just nonsense. It's a very, very fantastical, idealized scenario created by somebody who's trying to say like, well, technically this could happen if you did this. And when I read it, I say I reject the premise. I don't think that this could happen. And even if it could happen this way, this is obnoxiously absurd.
And then have you heard the no planes theory, that there weren't any planes at all? That it was like a holographic CGI type.
Yeah, I have heard that.
technology
So the only thing I can say about the no planes theory, and this is strictly anecdotal, I one time ever seen a video that seemed to me to be pretty obviously like not doctored, because like back then we still weren't super duper good at it. And this wasn't like an official like video. This was like footage that somebody had. It showed like the wing of one of the planes like clipping through. It just like sort of like just goes right through until like the plane hits the other building and like the building's unscathed. And I was like, oh, that's a really cool video. I'm gonna put it on Facebook. And by the time I posted it, the link was broken. I went back. I couldn't get to the video anymore. And I was like, well, that doesn't actually mean anything for sure, but that's really weird. That's really, really weird. Because I've looked at a lot of stuff, and I dug for a lot of stuff, and that's the only time I ever saw that video. Like, one time ever in my life. I think that the no plane theory is really hard to spend a lot of time thinking about. Because there's not really much I can do to push it one way or another. I don't think a plane hit the Pentagon, and I don't think a plane hit Pennsylvania. So I'd be pretty on board with a two-plane theory. But maybe not a no plane theory, because the Pentagon, like I said, it's too accurate to like the most convenient spot possible. Like if the government was gonna blow up any spot of any building on like that day, so it was like the day before Donald Rumsfeld came out and said that we have $1 trillion missing, or that's unaccounted. We have $1 trillion of unaccounted spending, and we need to get access to that information. That would be the spot. Like whoever's responsible for that spending, like they would be like, I want to blow this spot up. Like you give me the whole map, and can I blow up this spot? It's worth $1 trillion. So people say like, why would they do that? A lot of people say, well, oil. Sure, okay, maybe, but like $1 trillion for people with the ability to do so. A lot more people have been killed for less money in the name of money.
Yeah. And I'm not sure if it was initially one of the deals, but I know that there was a lot of poppy fields.
Oh yeah.
Too, and there was kind of a little bit of talk about that being a little bit of it too.
Oh yeah. I have friends who were in the military when he got sent over. They were trained very much to identify the plants and protect the plants. Like at all costs, it was like high priority. Yeah, which kind of leads into the idea that the government brings in drugs and then sells it to high-level drug dealers, and then it sort of perpetuates the drug war. They're bringing it in, making the money off of it, and then seizing it again, redistributing it. and making money off of incarcerating people and essentially legalize slavery from prison labor. But I know that's not what we're talking about. But I mean, I just at least wanted to cover like the full thought of like why that would be relevant.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Sure.
Yeah, so I seen you sent me a picture of the two different airplanes. I never really know fully what to make of that. It's kind of hard to get deep with the like it might not have been like a regular 767 because it's hard to determine what the implications mean and what that changes because like you could have a regular Boeing 767 with the correct materials on board to, let's say, if you're going with a thermite theory that can ignite thermite, because there's not a lot of ways that you can effectively light thermite. You can't light it with like a regular fire. So, I mean, you could say that it was filled with another accelerant. So I'm not super sure what to make of that. But I just looking at the picture, I didn't read any of the text on the other thing. I know that's the crash site of the Pennsylvania plane.
Yep.
And that I could dig a hole that big with 5 of my friends in an hour. And like, there's literally not a plane there.
Yeah.
There's literally no evidence of a plane there. The coroner reported that they didn't find a body. They didn't find any clothes. There wasn't even a drop of blood on the site. And that, like, I remember seeing that one on the news too. And like, that's a plane crash. And if you look at that, if you Google what a plane crash looks like you don't have to be digging for anything. You don't have to be like trying to find a conspiracy website. Just look at the Pennsylvania plane crash and find any other plane crash that looks remotely similar to that. And this is what I'm saying when it's like there's too many things that are inconvenient. And the 9/11 Commission report addresses none of the things that we're talking about. Even though a lot of these questions were raised to Congress, a lot of these questions were talked about in the mainstream, like it didn't happen a lot in like the major news networks, but every once in a while you'd get some of these things floating around. But people were talking about these things for a little while until war happened and that kind of just sort of phased out. And we also didn't talk about, like, the news didn't talk about them a lot because they're very focused on the towers. We didn't want to talk about Pennsylvania. We didn't want to talk about the Pentagon. We didn't want to talk about World Trade Center Building 7, or as that video called it, the Salomon Brothers building. We focused very much on the towers, which would have been the hardest one on its own to like investigate because of the amount of rubble, the amount of just shit that was there. And then, and even when the Pentagon got hit, they covered it with sand. If somebody got shot and lived and I threw sand in one spot of the taped off crime scene, I'm going to jail because that's egregious to do. They covered the entire site with sand. All the evidence is completely ruined. There's no good reason to do that. The fires weren't that bad. There also weren't any like wingspan holes on the Pentagon either. Aside from the fact that an aerial maneuver to perform that without hitting any other buildings on the way down. It's like they used a tool assisted, like, I don't know if you know what a TAS is. It's like a speed running term. Tool assisted. Oh my gosh, I hate myself. I can't think of the thing and I brought it up. So it's like in a video game where you create a program that runs like exactly the inputs that you want, because like it's basically humanly impossible to do it. In theory, a human could do all the perfect inputs to achieve what you're looking for, but realistically nobody ever could. That's the kind of level of like aerial prowess we're dealing with. And the people that supposedly flew the planes failed their flight school. Or that hijacked and then flew the planes failed their flight school. Some of the people on the list of hijackers turned themselves in because they were still alive. Like their name and picture were put out by American media saying these were the ones. And the 9/11 Commission report never talked about that. They never talked about the sand. We can talk about the conditions in which the 9/11 Commission report were written, which were crazy. I have no... If the internet existed, I don't think it could have happened like that. Like if the internet existed in the way that it exists today, I don't think that any government officials could have gotten away with having that kind of a meeting. I feel like
Yeah,
that would
and
be
then
like the most unifying thing across all sides. Is like, no, this is not happening.
yeah, and then I think I saw something about the budget being super small too in comparison to kind of what it was supposed to be compared to other missions.
Yeah, let's see. I can look that up. Mission. Uh, budget for the commission was $15 million. That's for all the fact finding, everything. Let's see. Wait. Oh, wait a minute. Wait a minute. That's not even correct. Oh my gosh, is it 3 million?
I think it was something super low.
I mean, 15 million is pretty low for basically an act of war. Let's see. Progress. They agreed to up the commission's budget by 9 million. Okay, so it started off as 3 million and they brought up to 15 million. But it's still an extremely, extremely cheap report.
Yeah. The thing that I had saw was the head of the commission, Thomas Keane, said that he actually said that they were purposely set up to fail because of the funding.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. And I have to Google him because I know it's weird that they picked him. I'm just drawing a blank. Okay, yeah, I guess then maybe it was weird that he doesn't really have any credentials to do so. Yeah, there's no reason why he should have been the one to lead that. That's pretty weird. Just looking over his credentials, it's not good. So are you aware of the conditions that Bush and Cheney had?
A little bit. You mean?
I want to make sure that I don't misquote them. So I know that they were only to be interviewed together. None of it could be taped.
Oh, yeah.
None of it could be taped. They were allowed to lie. Like that was a condition that they were allowed to lie during it. They can't seek testimony from anybody, any of their aides. They had to limit Bush's testimony to 1 hour. Yep, the joint custody.
I remember there being, well, the whole video of Bush being in that little kindergarten classroom reading the book. The book was like upside down and they were talking about planes and stuff.
Yeah.
The whole thing was weird. There's a lot of talk that it was, there's a lot of talk that the whole thing in general was like some sort of ritual, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, there's always to some degree some kind of symbolism in like any of like the super duper major events where a lot of people died. I don't know how much credence I give it per se, but it is weird. It's really weird.
Yeah, the
I'd have to
kids
take a case
reading
by
out that
case.
part of the book was really strange. What was strange to me about it?
Let's see. Oh yeah, Bush and Cheney also tried to stop the commission from happening. They did also. Yeah, they denied an increase in funds. The guy who headed it asked for an extra $11 million. They told him no. And there was a lot of stuff where there were people trying to like the White House. What do they call that? It's like, not like the administration, but like their aides, and I'm drawing a blank on the word. That there was a lot of people who reported trying to be strong-armed about the things that they said. Nobody who spoke on it was allowed to like speak publicly. And if the thing that got me the most is that if anybody who was involved in the commission had an issue with anything anybody else said, it would not be put into the report. So when you look at like why it's not about security anymore, because you can just limit who can see the report. Like it's not like this full report had to be released to the public either. They could have redacted it. There could have been a multitude of ways of protecting sensitive information from going to people, and that wasn't the route they took. They took the route of just not including the information, and that's it. And you can take all of that and then still see that there was lots of warnings ahead of time, and they were ignored. And admittedly, they admitted to it when it came time to push the Patriot Act, so that all the government, like the official reason for that was so the government agencies could communicate with one another better, which I don't disagree is a good idea. Like I probably want, if there's somebody who moved into my town, I probably want the police station in my town to have the information that the FBI has about somebody who just moved in, if they're like a released rapist or a murderer. I would probably want my government to be able to communicate effectively in order for them to do their job. Sure, that's fine, but that was kind of the thing that was really pushed, it's weird how when before the Patriot Act came up, we never really talked about how this was an issue concerning 9/11. But as soon as that came up, all of a sudden we have all this evidence that we could have known about it, and these agencies could have cooperated in a better way to prevent it from happening then. It's like every agency sort of figured it out at the same time as soon as the bill came around.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, I think at this point they're just kind of like assume that everybody knows that it was a whole facade type deal, and that it's not even trying anymore, you know?
Yeah, I do think that most people really do think that something's wrong with it. I just think that most people don't know a lot of good, solid information that's like grounded in facts. So if they try to talk to somebody about it who's fairly convinced otherwise for the same reason, it's pretty easy to shoot down like half reasonings. And so people just kind of like, okay, like it still doesn't sit right, and they just kind of just, all right, I guess I just don't talk about it with that person. So I feel like people are, and I think a lot of people that probably do know that something's wrong with it don't want to deal with the fact that there's something wrong with it, because that means something, and it's kind of hard to deal with that.
Yeah. Yeah, like I said, even looking back at videos, even though I was younger, it's just still a really heavy thing.
Yeah.
Pretty big event.
Yeah, it's a pretty big deal. And the end result ended up in geez, how long was the Afghanistan war? It was like 18 years or something.
Yeah.
In addition to that
I mean,
war,
it just went on forever and ever.
yeah, we just in the last year pulled our troops out.
Yeah.
And so
that was kind of a messy deal.
it was bound to be messy no matter how it happened.
Yeah.
And I think that if it had happened 2 years prior, all the problems that happened with it, just the opposite side would have been complaining about. I don't think that I heard anybody who was upset about the people who are going to be left behind in Afghanistan, that we're going to have a really hard time dealing with it, ever cared about Native people from Afghanistan prior to that happening. I think we would have just seen the opposite side complaining about very similar things with just a couple words changed here and there. But in addition to that war, we also lost a huge amount of our freedom to not be spied on. It was just totally okay, and it got a lot of people on board with just like agreeing with it. People that like I never would have thought. People who agreed with it then are mad about it now, knowing full well, like would agree with the things that like are happening now that they hate when their privacy is invaded. The people that are the loudest about being upset about it are the people that were the loudest about saying we have to do what we have to do to protect our country then. And that's really weird to me. It was like a total mindfuck for a lot of people that would never agree to the stuff that happened as a result. So like when I say there's a lot of things that are convenient, it's a lot. And I know we kind of talked about NORAD a little bit, it wasn't just that there was a drill. They were doing a drill at the exact same time involving the exact same scenario at the exact same location. They were literally running a drill about planes being flown into the same towers. And we have audio recordings of people saying like, is this real or a drill? Like, because it was like,
Yeah, they were all super confused.
yeah, like that's it almost feels like I'm gonna borrow a book out of Alex Jones's or borrow a word out of Alex Jones's playbook here. It feels cartoonish when you think
Yeah.
about the fact that it's 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 it almost feels like you're being mocked because it gets the same kind of plane. It's the same, like the people who would be scrambled for that. They're practicing that exact thing happening the exact same way at the exact same time. That's too much. Like NORAD's never failed before, ever, not once.
Yeah.
And they failed. Well, I don't remember the exact number of times, but multiple times in the same day. Like not before or after has NORAD ever failed to intercept.
Yeah. And then became the birth of the TSA for airports and stuff. Oh yeah, just kind of bouncing off the privacy deal.
Everybody's favorite government agency. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, I would not get on an airplane. No.
I
No
wouldn't,
way.
especially around that time, especially if you're a woman. There was so much glorious abuse of power by the TSA for a really long time, and for a long time, people just sort of accepted it, and we didn't talk. I don't think we really talked about the like insanity of the TSA's like overreach for like maybe like 5 or 6 years after it was around. Like you might hear something here or there, but it was always like quickly with like a big blanket statement, like, well, we have to do what we have to do, kind of thing. And I think if that kind of like it's gotten a lot better now than it used to be. But if the kinds of things that happen where like people were essentially, if you take out any kind of context that it's like a government agency and they have a fear that you might have something on you, people being sexually violated just because they're randomly chosen, or
Yeah.
I mean, it doesn't take much to Google TSA human right violations to see all the things that happened, and nothing really changed for a really really long time. And I think that kind of added to the fear. Like if you're trying to scare people, that when the government basically says it's acceptable for these people to do anything they think they should and have full authority to do so, and like you can't even say never mind, I'm not going to get on the plane. That tells you that the danger level is way, way higher than you would think if you were not to get on a plane ever.
Yeah.
I can't think of a good reason for that. And it was wholly ineffective, too, at stopping anything. We didn't have any data suggest that it would be, and we didn't have any data suggest that it was effective. Yeah, TSA makes me upset.
I don't fly, so
I've never.
I mean, I've only flown once or twice, I guess. I went to California one time, and then I went to Illinois one time when I had a tiny newborn baby, and that was just like the biggest nightmare I ever went through. So I'll never do that again, even without a baby.
Oh yeah, I was gonna go to California a couple years ago to play a nerdy card game that's not relevant anymore. And we were just gonna drive. We were just gonna get an RV. I wasn't gonna fly, and not even because like I'm not afraid of like being in the air, but I don't want to deal with any of the garbage associated with it.
Yeah. My father-in-law's a pilot. Oh,
Oh yeah?
cool. But
Does he have any interesting perspectives on what we're talking about?
no, I mean, I've never asked him,
Oh,
but
you never mentioned like the NORAD thing or anything to him?
no, no, not at all. He was in the Air Force now. I mean, like, no, I would never. So speaking of Bush, what do you know about like the Skull and Bones and Bilderberg stuff?
Give me 1 minute. Let me get some water. I'm, I'm doing a lot more talking than I thought I was gonna. I wanted people to see how much stuff you knew. Give me 1 sec. Let me get some water. Oh, that's right. I forgot I got the good 7-Eleven water. Okay.
7-Eleven water.
You know what 7-Eleven is?
A convenience store?
Yeah, it's like a really big chain in the Midwest. And they have because I have really bad GERD, which I went over in my last stream. pH water is really good for it. It's basically useless to almost everybody to drink alkaline water, but if you have really high levels of acid in your stomach, it can help neutralize it. So they're like $1 a piece for a big one, and most other brands are like $3 for a small water. So skull and bones, like, so like all of them are basically at least to me, I can't separate the Skull and Bones or Bilderbergs from like Freemasons. It seems like all like little different platforms of like Freemasonry.
I watched a video on Skull and Bones this morning, and apparently what it is, it's a really good video. It's 30 minutes long, but basically that it's 15 people picked out of each Harvard graduating class.
Yeah.
And they're picked during their junior year.
What was that movie?
And it just...
Did you have more? If not, I can expand. If you have more, by all means, go ahead.
I mean, I haven't really, like, the secret society stuff really isn't something that I've really looked into much.
Gotcha.
Like, as far as more recently, I have dug into like the World Economic Forum, and then
How about that Trilateral Commission?
yeah, but the Davos stuff where they have the big meetings with all the elites and stuff up there, and Klaus Schwab and what he's up to. You know, like basically just this that we're hackable animals, and the huge debate on free will is kind of like, what really piques my interest about that. But as far as secret societies go, I think Freemasons are a pretty more common known type deal.
Yeah, I think that
Then
if they
you're getting
weren't,
into like the symbolism and stuff,
yeah, I think Freemasons are like the personification of like hidden in plain sight. Because like they're in Michigan, one of the big concert halls is the Masonic Temple. We have like Pine Knob, the Masonic Temple, and shit, I don't know. There's like one other one, and then it's otherwise casinos, or like there's like what do they call they have like little centers, and they'll host like pancake breakfasts and stuff like that. But it's always the people that are like really wealthy. Like I lived in a small town, and the people that were in the Freemasons up there were always like pretty well off guys, and they always like it would be like the only piece of jewelry that they would wear, and they always have it on their license plates. Like it's very important that it's known to other people who know what it is when they see it, that they see it. And I feel like the Freemasons are a really good, like they've done a really good job of like not being super hidden, because for a long time it wasn't a super like common thing to run into them. Oh damn! I have a real Shriner's hat from a Shriner. I got his hat off of him. One of the Freemasons who I worked for a Freemason, and his son, who just wasn't very good at life, I guess you could say. Oh, he owed me some money for some PlayStation games, and I was like, dude, you give me your Shriner's hat and we'll call it good. I have a legitimate Shriner's hat. He's like, all right, you can't tell my dad. Like, like full stop. You can no. I told them you don't owe me any money and I'll give you $10. Give me your Shriner hat. And I have this like weird like zip like it's like a bank drop bag, but it's for the Shriner hat. That's like what you get it in.
It's funny.
I'm so excited to have it. Maybe. Oh, and like the Shrine Circus is a thing. I don't know if it's all over the place, but here it is. That's put on by the Shriners. And they have different sorry, Shriners are like I don't know how you put that. It's like a division of the Freemasons. It's almost like they're like the public outreach.
Ones that are like if you go to like a parade on a street parade, they're the ones driving around the little tiny cars.
They have the red fezzes
Is that
on.
what we're talking about?
With the tassel?
Yeah.
Yeah. I always think of them as like the public outreach. It seems like all the things that they do are like really good, but nobody really knows what they do or how they get their money. It just has to be done through public funding, I guess. And it wasn't until really, really recently that they allowed women or minorities in either, and they started being a lot more open. So it seems like with the way that they operated for a very long time, it just seemed like a better move to show like an open part of the organization. That way people didn't ask as much about anything else going on within it. And that's kind of the really weird part, is that there's like Shriner halls in every town and nobody really knows why they're there, like what's going on with them. Like, why are they so prevalent? They're not selling a product. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And they have really close associations with a lot of other secret societies, like the Skull and Bones. A lot of them, if not maybe all of them, are or their parents were Masons. A large number of people that get into Harvard in general are themselves or related to Masons. And then like the Skull and Bones Society, when like you said, would you say 15? I didn't know the exact number off the top of my head.
Yeah, 15
Yep.
are picked. And I guess they're like pretty much guaranteed to be well off. It's pretty much like a guarantee if you join.
Yeah. So people that are in the Skull and Bones don't ever go on to be nobody. A huge number of our presidents were in the Skull and Bones. Like a ridiculously disproportionate amount of presidents are Skull and Bones members. And a lot of things that when you look into them and you read is there's a lot of ways of leveraging these people before they're fully accepted into it, so that way that they can be like manipulated or blackmailed should a time come when like manipulation or blackmail will be very useful. I think the most common theme through anybody that's ever like reported on it or like said that they were in it or it's proven that they were in it is that they make them commit a homosexual act in front of everybody else to see it. So that way it's not just like we know, like all the other people know. So if you try to do something, like we all have this on you. And I guess that might not be as big of a deal anymore. But 20, 30 years ago, it would have been pretty career ending if somebody said this person was secretly gay.
Yeah.
Especially if they kind of twisted that story in like other ways that made it even like violent or however you want to make it worse in the context that it being bad to begin with, like it was seen in that time.
Yeah.
So it seems like a way to assure that people that get put in places of power are picked ahead of time and they have some degree of like a leash on them. It's sort of the trade-off. And when you look into it, it doesn't seem like that's a very big deal for the people that are in it. They seem pretty content with it. Like the people that are willing to talk about it, that doesn't seem like to be like the big deal to them. It's just they tend to talk about how interconnected it is with all the things that are really important. And I think the thing that's really startling to me is that when you have all these people that end up in these groups go on to be extremely influential, and it's such a strong pattern, that means that to some degree, somebody who isn't known to us is deciding who's getting put in those positions.
Yeah.
Which
Yeah, it makes
is,
our you know, yeah, it makes our republic or democracy a little less significant when these other people that aren't elected are able to make, you know, such an impact on our policies and stuff, for sure.
yeah,
Um, and then I guess like was the Bilderberg? It was previously secret, and then now it's like all public. And then there, or is there like a public arm of it? Because I looked into it a little bit, and there's even found like on they have their website
hmm,
and their 2022 all the participants that were on it, and then they've got like their little uh well, it's a press release, but their agenda notes on it.
yeah. So I don't really give any credibility to any like of the notes of what goes on in it because they're never substantiated by anything. Like if you want to give us a
Yeah.
camera in there, okay, sure. And then you want to give us the cliff notes too, okay, that's fine. But what the Bilderbergs was for a very long time was something that was strictly never discussed. And I can't think of his name. There was one guy who used to like crazy bust his ass figuring out where they were going to be, and he would try to find out everything he could about it. He'd like pay, like he'd find out where it was going to be, and he'd scout out ahead of time, and he'd like pay off waiters that were going to be there to like give them scraps of paper from it. And I think that's the main reason why that they're more public is because they're slowly getting like more and more information exposed about that it was even happening. Because you don't take something that's like super hush hush and secret and make it public for no reason. Like why was the reason of making it secretive to begin with then? So I think it's the same idea as the Freemasons. When you open yourselves up to what looks like transparency, but you don't actually give any information about the questions that were being asked when you were being secretive, it just seems like a way to distract you from not asking the questions that you were asking to begin with. Because we still don't know what the Bilderbergs talk about. All we know is that the most important people in the world get together and talk to each other. That's it. That's all we're allowed to know, which is really, really weird. And it's not just like political leaders. It's people in like finance. It's people in like major industries. In some instances, even like sports stars have been there. It's a really weird. Like the Queen is usually there. It's a really weird gathering, and given the way that our news cycle works and the amount of interest that people have in the political landscape, the amount of money that you could generate by like showing what's going on in them would be tremendous. So there's a huge incentive to do so, and it's still not happening. And I think it lends itself to being really creative when you're trying to figure out why it's happening. But it seems like there would be all the more reason to want to qualm those like fears. Because I mean, I could run through 1,000 scenarios of why it's happening, but the thing that freaks me out the most is that they don't want anybody to know what's happening. There's
Yeah.
it's kind of like the Area 51 situation. Like I can't really believe anything you say about it when you said that it didn't happen for like what, like 30 years, like that there's nothing
Yeah.
here. So it's kind of a moot point to say that okay, now we're giving press releases. It's kind of like saying, "Oh, Area 51 is giving tours now." And then they take you around the perimeter of the fence and go, "Well, there you go. Have a nice day. I'm glad all your questions were answered."
Yeah. I got the list of the people that were there for the 2022 meeting in front of me. Like the CEO of Shopify was there, president of Volvo. Uh, yeah, weird.
There you go.
One of the USA senators, Kristen Sinema, was there from Secretary General of NATO. Upstream, the co-founder and chairman of Upstream.
What's upstream? I
I
feel
don't
like I
know.
walked into a verbal trap when I said that. Uh, Yeah, I just had the British government communications headquarters director was there. Yeah, when you have this many people with much influence over people meeting in secret, uh, I don't
Yeah, it
think
looks
you
also to be
can.
super super random too. Like the director of the CIA, chairman and CEO of Pfizer, the CEO of Shell. It's like like Shopify. Like, why would that person need to be there?
So the kind of thing that runs through my head is that since the list of people changes a lot, there's generally like a core. Well, I guess it's changed somewhat recently too, but we typically see the same types of people coming through this, and then we have like our oddballs of like different kinds of companies. You have to ask like what do all these people have in common? Like why would you want these people at this time for that? And it seems
Yeah.
like they're the kinds of people that have the ability to change things. And in any normal circumstances, people with this kind of power, when they meet with anybody, there's some level of transparency demanded. So like if a CEO of a company were to meet with like let's see. Okay, we'll go with like the Volvo Group and BP. If just those two people were to meet together, you would immediately think something's up. Like, why are they getting together? Like, well, like
Yeah.
not even maliciously. Like people would just say like, hey, we want to know
Yeah.
just that we know that it is above board, right? If you're saying it's
Yeah.
going to be secret, like people are going to inherently be suspicious. Or if you have I don't know what the hell that is.
DeepMind and OpenAI. What's
Yeah,
OpenAI?
Infliction AI is on there too. Uh, the director of our National Security Council was there too. I know OpenAI.
Elon is with OpenAI.
Oh,
Which I mean, we can embrace robots, right? We're not, is it hypercritical to think that they're trying to make humans obsolete, or do you think that we can kind of embrace a society that has robots to help us with things that they can help with?
I think it depends on what you mean by obsolete, and I think that it's inevitable that AI will become superior to people in every way. It's like manifest destiny. Like we can't stop it.
Yeah.
Even to the point like it's already had like a third of the United States jobs have been over a third of the jobs now have been taken away from machines that can just do it better. It's just not how we typically think of robots.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think it. The real problem is that we're not addressing that it's a problem in a serious way. It's like there's pretty basic solutions that we could put in place to like safety net society from it, but we're not doing that. And as far as like actual
Yeah.
robots with like AI inside of them, it just really depends on which way we go with it. I don't think that it makes very much sense for anybody to try to implement like a world where robots are like the new humans. That doesn't really seem to track with like any goal that a human would have.
Yeah. I mean, there's just a lot of people that are freaked out about it. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
It's a
I
pretty
think
big
I'm a little
bit.
freaked.
It's a pretty big topic right now that people think that they're trying to just have
Are you talking
the
about like the
super elites
transhumanism
and
thing?
then transhumanism, and then yeah, I guess transhumanism.
I didn't know if that's what you were like trying to drive at. I just wanted
No,
to.
I'm not
Okay.
specific. That's not specifically what I'm talking about. I'm talking more about like quantum computing and like super smart AI that can have like minds of their own. New like species type deal. I guess transhumanism, not really though. The quantum computing is impressive though.
Did you see the new article that just came out like yesterday or the day before? A quantum computer did 9,000 years worth of work in like 25 nanoseconds.
I did not see that.
It's crazy.
It's crazy. Have you ever seen Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy?
Yeah.
Like that big computer that just like is supposed to predict
That 42
what
Adam.
I envision.
Yeah. I don't know. Did you happen to catch mine and Will's stream at all?
I did. Yeah.
So all those crypto machines would be a really good addition to like a big quantum computer, don't you think?
Yeah. I am laughing about the fact that he was supposed to be interviewing your last comment before you guys left about him interviewing a vampire after he just played that video. Is hilarious.
Thank you. He had big supervillain vibes, and I actually left his chat, because I'm not the same person I am in real life when I'm in a stream chat. I get real wild and just say whatever pops into my head. Because I'm not a real person there. I'm just a name on a screen. I get to be a little bit more wild. But I don't know. I feel bad about it because I know that I don't know. I don't want his guests to see that and be like, what the fuck, man? But
well,
I don't know.
Should have probably.
He does lend himself to it a little bit with the talking about the deconstruction of like all morality. I'm really excited to watch his interview with that guy because I think that guy scares me a little bit and I want to know more about him. Yeah.
Yeah. I hope that I don't know if it would be on or not, but yeah, I was gonna watch it too because that guy was he seemed super intense about whatever it was that he was trying to say. It's kind of a good example of what we were talking about in the beginning. If I could sit down with that guy and just, listen to what he had to say and give him just a little bit of feedback and listen and then just a tiny bit, that guy seems like he needs a little bit more of an ear than he does somebody to, you know what I mean? He just wants somebody to be heard, I guess. But I mean, I have no idea what the topic is of like anything that's going on with
Yeah, when Will played it, he said, "Did any of that make sense to you at all?" And I was like, "Yeah, every single word of it made sense to me." Because a lot of what he was saying, he was kind of gliding along like a philosophical. He was basically laying out like a philosophical ideology, and using a lot of like philosophical terms to describe what he was saying, and that's like totally my jam. I'm a big moral philosophy nerd, and I really like ethics and stuff. And he was kind of like deconstructing them to the like a weird subset of nihilism. So I was like, yeah, I know what this guy's talking about. I just think it's wrong. I think it's incorrect. But I was really impressed when he said he came up with it all on his own.
Yep.
And it wasn't like the product of him like reading Nietzsche and not understanding the premise correctly. That would have been my guess. Yeah. A lot of times when I think about the implications of like coming away from 9/11, it gives the government a pretty good shield that it was like the birth of like an entire generation of people not trusting the government. Because I think that prior to that, people had a pretty good sense of trust in the government. Like our biggest conspiracies were like 9/11, the Tuskegee experiments, and the Philadelphia experiment, right? Or the Tuskegee trials. Yeah, it wasn't anything like super insane. Like we had like MK Ultra, but people really didn't even know about a lot of that stuff. Like JFK was the big one that people knew about.
Yeah. Yeah, and that is interesting to think about. Like, what conspiracies were there before 9/11?
Yeah, well, they released like
JFK for sure.
Yeah, that were mainstream. There wasn't a lot. That were like mainstream. Very, very few. I don't know how many people talked about like World War I or the Vietnam War being caused by a false flag, which seems to be the case to me. A false flag in that the thing actually happened, but we made sure that it happened, kind of thing. It's just a lot of these things weren't looked at because people had a pretty good sense of trust in their government. And I think that when you create that much animosity towards the government gets to do a lot of things and just say, well, those people are just 9/11's conspiracy theorists. Like they get to group them in with people that were suspicious because of that. And it makes it a lot easier to do things in plain sight because you can dismiss anything that any concerns that people have by just equating it to that.
Yeah.
So that's another thing that I think a lot of people don't think about, because my least favorite argument against talking about 9/11 not being what the official story would amount it to is that, well, why would they do that? And people say that all the time. Well, why would they do that? There's a lot of really like good reasons why an institution with nearly unlimited power would want to get even more power, and the end result was very much that case. And I think people don't think about power in terms of being able to operate more freely in your face and dismiss any concerns like that. I think they just think of it more in terms of getting more money and being able to utilize it for like. I think that people that don't think there was anything up with 9/11 thinks that people that think it does means that the government is somehow like. I just think they have like really weird like movie like ideas of like what I think the government's doing because of that, and they think that it's nonsense because of that, rather than like really like straightforward pragmatic ways that this would happen. But I also think that it's a bad question to ask anyways, because even if you don't know why, it doesn't change the fact that like all the things that we talked about are verifiable with a quick Google search. So, so I guess maybe they could tell me, like, I was going to say, like, well, then why did they lie? Like, I'll tell you why they did it if you tell me why it was so important to make sure that, like, these things weren't talked about. And all of them so conveniently placed. And, like, they don't talk about the funding either. They didn't even ask about it during the 9/11 Commission.
Yeah.
And we do have documents about who paid, like, who the people who were listed as the hijackers. They were on the payroll of somebody who received money from our government. And I can't think of his name. There's a guy in Saudi Arabia. And on the day of 9/11, he was having breakfast with, damn it, this has been a long time. He was having breakfast or lunch with somebody in our government. It would have been like at least at the level of like a director of the CIA or higher, not necessarily in the CIA. I'm a little rusty on this. I think when we talked about what we were going to talk about, I told you I haven't talked about 9/11 in a while.
Yeah. Yeah, I haven't either. That's why I've kind of been. I mean, I looked at I got some sources and stuff like that, but the videos are all so long. There's so many videos on YouTube. You can just type anything in about 9/11 on YouTube, and there's all kinds of
Yeah, that kind of
watch.
scares me too. I don't know how far off like a lot of these videos that are really popular. Just the fact that they're super popular. Normally, if a video is really popular, I can trust that it's going to be a good source of information. But the dislike button's gone now, and now it seems like the more radical and extreme and less justified a claim is, the more popular that it is. Because I mean, it's more exciting. That I don't really care about exciting. I care about like what kind of credible information can I get from the source.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So it's kind of hard to suss that stuff out. I know that we talked about the movie Zeitgeist, and oh my god, like one of these days, I'd like to have like a watch party on stream. I definitely want I want you to see it. I'd really like to be there when you see it. I like Will would be an awesome person. Or I think I don't know what his name is. Is it Thermore?
I don't know.
He's
Anybody
a guy
else
from
really,
Will's
but you and
community.
Will?
Gotcha. Oh dang it! I forgot whenever I click anything on Discord, I ruin your video on stream. I have to click back. Yeah, or even just people in my Discord too. I think that everybody should see it. It talks about the things that I talked about in 9/11 to a much better degree. They break down every single like component, and they talk about those things. It has a bibliography attached, so everything that they say in it, you can find where they source that information from. And then a lot of things moving forward too. It's really, really good. And that I think that was probably the movie. I think a lot of people found out about it. What was Alex Jones' movie about it called? Loose Change?
Endgame.
Endgame? I thought Endgame came after. Who did Loose
Endgame?
Change?
Endgame and Secrets of Bohemian Grove.
Okay, well, I think that Loose Change was the first movie that was made about 9/11 and like something being wrong. Because I remember Endgame was after came out after I was watching Alex Jones. Oh, David Dylan Avery and produced by Corey Rowe. Yeah, that was like the first big thing that came out. I never. Oh wait, Alex Jones is executive producer. Oh, of the final cut of the movie. Okay, I'm not totally crazy here. But I guess he probably didn't have much of a hand in like writing it or anything. So in 2007, the first edition of Loose Change came out in 2005. Alex Jones was an executive producer on the final cut, which came out in 2007. I used to argue with my grandpa a lot about 9/11. He would he would hear what I had to say, and then without arguing anything, he'd just say no.
Yeah.
And that would happen a lot, yeah.
Yeah, I can remember getting into a huge argument with my stepdad about it. And it was kind of like a fresh stepdad situation where he was like brand new. Like, okay, dude, whatever.
Fresh out of the box.
Uh,
Uh yeah, shit. Because it happened and then it's been like a while after that. Yeah, I know it definitely made me harder to deal with for a lot of adults, but the people around me that were like my age, either they didn't care or they were like super interested as well. There was like nobody who was like, yeah, no, no, yeah, maybe probably. And I don't think
yeah.
anybody my age was like, no way, that's not a thing. They just didn't care.
hmm
I think
Yeah.
it's scarier if
Yeah,
you're an
that's what I
adult.
mean when you think about it. It depends on what age you were when it happened.
Yeah.
Basically, is what kind of shapes your feelings about it today.
Oh, is this the guy? Yeah, this is the Stephen E. Jones is the physicist. He's got to be. I know his face. I think he's the one who found the thermite. Let's see. THER. Yeah, nanothermite traces. Yeah, that's the guy. The physicist from Loose Change is the guy. I've never even seen Loose Change. He's the guy that found the thermite.
Uh,
I had no idea.
yeah, I have a video that I'm gonna send.
Yeah.
It's not one that we can watch today. It's 46 minutes long. But
Oh.
yeah, you said Stephen Jones.
Yeah, Stephen E. Jones. Is he a nuclear physicist? Yeah, he's a nuclear physicist. It's not a job that you get by being a quack. When I was 18, I wanted to be a nuclear physicist. It's harder than it looks. I might have been 19. Where did you put that video?
Our private
Oh, in the DMs.
chat.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think what I'll do is maybe just make a community event for Zeitgeist.
I think
And
that'd
anybody
be good.
who's
Yeah.
anybody who's in my Discord can do it. I'll just kind of try to see when people are like wanting to watch it and try to find like the best date, and then I can just put it up on YouTube and stream it to the Discord, and everybody can sort of watch party it through Discord. And because people
What is that in your Discord about a vegan panel? Because you had tried to talk to me about vegan.
So I originally was going to have a vegan panel that had I don't know what his last name is. So Big Papa Fascist said that he would moderate it, and he is very, very non-vegan, and he's kind of a combative guy. and I wanted somebody who didn't agree with me to host or to moderate the panel. That keeps everything above board. Like, I'm hosting it, it'd be on my channel, I'm hosting it. I'm the one who, like, so everybody knows that, like, I'm the one who called people there. And then on the other side, I have Big Papa Fascist, who's like a super staunch conservative and anti-vegan. Probably the most anti-vegan person I've ever personally spoken to as the moderator. And then I had Perspective Philosophy was going to be on the vegan side. I was going to be on the vegan side. And just a regular dude who's a vegan was going to be on that side. And I had a couple of professors on board. Well, I had a couple of like PhD professors in philosophy who agreed to be on there. One of them ended up backing out, but I still had the other one. It was just depending on when it was. And then Big Papa Fascist backed out because he wanted to host it or he wasn't going to do it. So it sort of defeated the point of me having him host it to begin with. I'm not like a super big fan of him. I debated him once. Like where it's not like him and I are on the same page. I don't trust him to host it and moderate it. That would be bad. Then it just looks like I'm trying to hurt the, you know what I mean? It just throws the whole purpose of this sort of discussion out of balance. Oh, you don't know what I mean?
No, I said yeah.
Oh,
I do.
okay. And then I had a couple people who made some bigger videos about anti-veganism, and so it was going to be like a 3 people representing each side. And my main goal with it wasn't to be super heated or vitriolic about it. I wanted people, each one of those people, to bring like their community to it, so that way they could hear the other people's sides about it. That's why I wanted a PhD on anti-veganism, and I was satisfied with the PhD student on my side, Perspective Philosophy. And also, I know him, I've talked to him, he knows what's up with that. And I wanted to have like different levels of understanding. So like we have 2 highly educated people. The one guy made a really good video on veganism or anti-veganism. Well, really good in that it was very successful. And I think I have a very good understanding of the ethics of it because I nerd out on all of my stuff. And then I wanted us to both have like a more regular person who just can pretty much say like, this is what I did and this is why I did it, without getting super technical. That way it could kind of reach anybody who was listening. They'd be able to understand why the other side operated the way that they did. Because I think that people who are adamantly against veganism are very rarely listening to what a vegan person's telling them. But I also think when a vegan talks to somebody who is very against veganism, they are some of the worst people in the world at explaining why they believe what they believe. They get really, a lot of times I see them get really haughty. They get really condescending, and they get frustrated really easily. So I kind of wanted to show different ways that people can talk about it, and like afterwards kind of evaluate it and say like, these are the things that it looked like got through to like these people. Chat responded really well to these arguments from this side, and I just wanted to see the best ways that people could communicate with each other on the subject, because the conversation about veganism is bad. It's really, really bad. One of the biggest streamers who talks about veganism, Ask Yourself, he does this thing called like name the trait, and he makes you name the trait of an animal that an animal has that a person doesn't have, or name the trait of a characteristic, name the trait that an animal has that makes it okay to like kill them and eat them. And then he'll show you how that trait also applies to people. That doesn't mean anything to anybody who's already made up their mind. Nobody's ever going to be convinced by that. That you're not speaking to people on an interpersonal level. You're basically saying, I'm going to take reality out of the equation. Your feelings don't matter. We're just going to boil it down to moral philosophy, and that's somehow going to make you change your mind. You might get some people on that, but like for the vast majority of people, that means nothing. All you're doing is condescending to them. All you're basically invalidating their feelings the entire way, and it's a bad way to have that conversation. So I just really, I do still plan on like putting that together. I just have to restructure it now. I just really want to figure out, I want to be able to have that and then demonstrate afterwards with like another video about it, where we're going wrong on both sides and how we can do better with that conversation. Because I don't think that vegans should be condemning people that eat meat. and I don't think that people that eat meat should plug their ears when vegans talk.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I think it's a good constructive conversation. That's a there's a lot of subjects you could do on that. You know what I mean? Kind of
I
falls in line
think
with my
so.
whole divisive rhetoric type deal. There's a whole infinite amount of things you could do with the panel. Lots of stuff.
Yeah. Well, I would hope that if the vegan panel went good, I could have similar style panels, because the panels that Twitch has are bad. It's just like everybody's invited to like just like argue with each other about whatever it is. But I don't think that nobody ever really takes a look and say like what's effective, what wasn't effective. I don't think people are working hard to get effective. Most of the time, people are working really hard to make sure that they get their time in, so that they like get like the spotlight on them for a couple of minutes, and that bummed me out too.
Yeah.
It's less of a town hall and more like just people fighting over the mic.
Yeah.
Which just makes me think that a lot of people don't care about the thing that they went there to talk about.
Yeah.
Yeah, thanks for asking about that though. If you know anybody who is like has very strong feelings on either side of that issue, you can tell them to talk to me. I'd be really interested to see if they are interested in having that kind of a discussion, because I do need to rebuild it. It is hard to find people for like the upper education levels of that, but still looking.
Well, I have to be going here pretty soon. Are we
Yeah.
going to do another conspiracy? This was fun.
I had a
There's
lot
like
of fun.
a lot of different things we can do. So
Yeah, I'd say get with me. Whenever's convenient with you, get with me and we can talk about it. And you had a lot more planning on your side than I did, just because I don't know, because I thought that I would remember more than I did, I suppose, because of how much that I've looked into it before. And I would like to come a little bit more prepared and be able to bring something more to the table like you did. You, like all the stuff you sent me beforehand, you kind of knocked it out of the park with that shit. And I feel like I did you a disservice by not coming more prepared.
no, I don't feel that way at all. You knew, you talked more than I did. All I did was just try to.
Feel bad about
It
that
took me a
too.
while to boost my memory on stuff.
I feel really bad about that.
No, it's okay. But yeah.
But
I'll
next
get with
time I want
you.
it to be one of your topics. I will try to learn about some of the things that you told me that I didn't know about, and then I can ask you questions to help educate me on it. Does that sound good?
Works. Yep.
All right. Thanks, Natasha.
Okay, you're welcome. I'll talk to you later.
Talk to you later. Have a great night.
Okay, bye.
Bye. Yeah, that was like the hardest part about this stream, is she picked one of my topics, especially like 9/11. I could talk about for forever. And it was kind of hard for me to stay on one thing, because my brain just starts going a million miles an hour when we talk about it. So I was hoping that we would engage with one of her things, because she's on the stuff that she's talked about, that it's very clear that she knows what she knows. And oh wait, I gotta change that scene. There we go. It's really obvious that she knows a lot about what she knows, and that's why I asked her to be on, because she's very, very well versed on conspiracy. At least if she's speaking on it, I trust that she knows what the fuck is up, and it's very rare. I wish we could have talked a little bit more about the distinguishment between conspiracy fantasies and conspiracy theories. When I say conspiracy theory, I mean that there is evidence to back up the claims, whereas like a conspiracy theory would be that 5G is causing COVID symptoms, or the election was rigged. Like, I need to see some hard data. I need to see evidence of this. Like, give me some video footage that clearly shows what's happening. That's the kind of stuff that I look for when I would be willing to call something a conspiracy theory. And I think that losing that distinguishment really hurts our ability to understand what's going on. Because I don't know if anybody could ever say that there's nothing going on behind the scenes of our government, of world governments, of the cooperation between world governments, like the highest ends of business. Like there has to be, like, I think the more fantastical idea would be that nothing is going on. And that's why I'm really interested in these things, because if there's something going on, then I guess I just feel like I gotta know. And I know that if I endorse any of these ideas, that to some degree, some people are gonna call me crazy. But I'm not gonna lie about it. I'm gonna try to do my best to present it in a way that shows that I am thinking about these things and I'm taking the proper steps to make sure that I'm not falling into traps with it. And I hope that anybody who's in chat who thinks that I'm making a lapse of judgment and how I'm assessing it would speak up and tell me. So that's pretty much it. However, don't go yet. Please let me send you over to Zonia. I know there's not that many of you, but I want Zonia to know that I love her. Sonia's still streaming, right? Oh no. Sonia's already done? No. Oh, I tried. Okay, well then let's see if there's any other super cool people. I mean, it's better than raiding nobody. TGR Dave doesn't need my help, but he's a cool guy. But if you stuck around, thank you. I hope that you forgive me for not letting Natasha speak more, because she's like, I don't know, whenever she talks about anything, I feel like I'm talking to an expert. But I mean, there's at least some degree of chance still that I'll be on the Mr. Girl hotline. I'm always really close to being the next one on, if not like literally the next one to be on when it ends. One time I was the next on, but there was nobody there to put me in the call. So fingers crossed that I'll get to take Mr. Girl down in the conversation about veganism. I'm not trying to take anybody down, but I hope that I get to talk to him about it, because I think that he'll budge some. All right, thanks guys. Take care. What just happened? Oh, okay. Yeah. Oh God. Why?
You got a list? Okay. This isn't the airing of grievances. I got some bones I could pick. I got some bones for you. Chat. Missing a shell jump in 20. What? I know!
Did I rate it? I don't think it is.
I got bones. You want my? You want?
There we go.
Okay, I gotta be careful how I phrase this.
Play one.
Slade, did you have to do any like tough farm labor today? Did you have to milk any dolphins?